we've been talking. We were actually last week and this week, we had a two-part conversation with Dr. Hervé Damas, who specializes in CBD. And we were talking specifically about the importance for men to really consider their mental health and the ways in which that CBD can help them in that, and in a variety of other ways, of course. And so it was interesting to me that the second part of that conversation was today when I know you were coming on, because as much as we can talk about CBD and cannabis as a tool for health and healing and well-being, we are also in a society where the criminalization of cannabis is still a real thing. And I don't know what this new administration is doing with regards to that. So we're seeing them take a lot of actions in a lot of other ways. So talk to us about what is currently happening in this space of advocacy for people who are still suffering from the criminalization of cannabis.
Thank you for having that conversation, first of all. I don't think this administration knows what they're doing with that. They do. There has been some conversation surrounding rescheduling, which we would like to, like your opening said, legalize it.
Right.
Let's put this behind us. Legalize it. Release those that are incarcerated for cannabis. It's interesting. What's been happening lately is celebrity voices stepping forward, which is always great. These are rights supporting celebrity voices like Mike Tyson.
Right.
Stepping forward, showing up on Fox. And listen, we are a bipartisan, nonpartisan, if you will, organization. So whoever's in office, we're going to work with them. So we need the right. We need the left. Right. So it's great to have someone with a platform like Mike Tyson to speak out about cannabis. But what we needed to go a step further in what direction we needed to go is making the very first step not having people incarcerated for cannabis. That's the first step. So before we start talking about banking and rescheduling, let's do the human thing and talk about those who are serving life sentences, 60 years in prison for this plant that we're talking about. So I don't want to hear about the business side of it before we start talking about the human side of it.
This is really important because when you mentioned the phrase rescheduling, it took me back to, ancient times when we had another administration that actually started the process of discussing what rescheduling would look like. There's been so much craziness since then, and now I'd completely forgotten that was at one point a very vibrant conversation about the possibility of rescheduling cannabis, and so the fact that has fallen completely off the radar is another indication that, as you said, we don't know if this administration actually knows what it is doing. And that to me is kind of scary because we are seeing an increase in criminalization activities. We're seeing now if this bill passes, there's going to be more money pumped into ICE than in the entirety of the United States Marines. So we have every reason to believe that criminalization generally is going to escalate significantly. Do you have any indication as to how they're going to approach this when it comes to cannabis? I've seen some discussion that some states are pulling back on cannabis expansion, and so it's very interesting to see this real interplay between the advocacy, the business components, and the elements. As you mentioned, Mike Tyson, he's long been a feature in this industry. And then the increased criminalization on everything else. It feels like a recipe where cannabis criminalization might also end up going in the wrong direction. What are your senses telling you?
They are still arresting people for cannabis. It's not right. A lot of people feel like it's legal. No, 200,000 people last year were arrested for cannabis. Yes.
Oh my God.
So it's crazy. What we're seeing is they're opening up more private prisons.
Right.
They're planning on that. And some of those people are probably going to be cannabis-related charges. And it's almost like you take a step forward, like we did with Governor Wes Moore in Maryland and his pardoning we're taking these steps slow. So we're going to start with pardoning, low level offenders, but it's taking a step backwards when we're constantly arresting people still for cannabis, but it's also a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Hmm.
Roughly $35 billion made last year
Wow.
in revenue off of cannabis. So it's very difficult to stay that straight and narrow path.
Right.
And there's so much going on, like you said, with ICE raids. Um, it's hard to keep cannabis at the top of conversation. You
Exactly.
know, I want to talk about the release of cannabis prisoners, but people are like, 17 million people are about to lose their health care.
Right.
They're about to, you know, take away early childhood education and all the different, we might be going to war at some point. Like,
Right.
who knows? Every day it's something different. And every day it feels like to people, it's almost a fatigue.
Mm. My God.
And that's the harsh part about it, is trying to have someone with a platform like yours actually care about this conversation. And that's why I thank you so greatly,
Mm.
because we need to still have this conversation. The thousands, tens of thousands of people still incarcerated for cannabis, they really need to know that they're not forgotten. And we are going to keep having these conversations no matter what else is going on in the world, because this is important too.
When you said 200,000, I almost felt like I was about to fall off my chair. Because that to me, those are numbers that are mind-boggling, considering that while people are being arrested, there are people in boardrooms making cannabis deals, like signing leases to have cannabis distribution. And so for me, the cannabis space is one of those environments where you clearly see, almost better than in any other, the disparity, but of course along racial lines, but also along class lines, such that at the same time that people are creating multi-million, trillion, or not trillion necessarily, well, not yet, multi-million or billion-dollar business plans, and hiring employees, and doing trainings, and getting security and alarm systems, and sourcing flour and sourcing products. At the same time, somebody on the street who doesn't have access to a license, who didn't file paperwork with the state in order to be able to open an enterprise and make a lot of money, they are facing time or dealing with all sorts of criminal repercussions as a result of their use of the very product that is going to make some other people a whole lot of money. For those of us who are not necessarily in the advocacy space for cannabis in particular, but perhaps we are thinking about criminal legal system reform generally. I'm actually about to hire, I'm looking for an attorney for a position where we're going to be really exploring what criminal legal system reform looks like in an era when police have full immunity. And so I don't know the answer to that, and I don't have the time to figure it out. So I'm trying to hire somebody to do that. By the way, Urban View, go to clsj.org. We got jobs posted. So apply. But I'm looking to bring experts into our law center, because it feels to me like as the escalation of policing increases, as we see again ICE with this budget that they're about to get that's larger than the Marines, as we're seeing what full police immunity will look like, and also what immunity for random vigilante, anybody on the street who goes to Amazon and orders a uniform that says something on it that looks official. It seems in many ways that we are devolving into a police state, more so than we ever have been, considering you and I are both women of African descent. That's a pretty big statement, because in our lifetime, what we are seeing right now has all the potential for explosive impact. What can those of us who are hearing this and saying, okay, I hadn't been thinking about cannabis advocacy because I thought everybody was legal right now, and they're hearing that number, 200,000 arrests last year for cannabis, and it's mind-boggling. And I will just point out that last year included the Biden-Harris administration. So this isn't just a Republican issue. That's one of the reasons why I was glad that you said you need people on the right and the left and in the middle to come together on this. Everybody knows somebody who is participating in use of the plant. What can we do to, even if we're not going to solely focus on cannabis legalization, what can we do to make sure that our community members who are dealing with the criminalization of cannabis are not forgotten, and dare I say, actually have advocates beyond yourself and the amazing work of your organization that are going to fight for them?
There's some really wonderful organizations out there.
Mm.
In Philadelphia, there's Free My Weed Man.
Oh,
There's
snap.
Yes, Free My Weed Man, Crystal Bush, wonderful advocate, wonderful group of advocates over there, and getting involved with what they're doing, paying attention to the bills that are being set forth in your state. It's not just the federal government, it's the states too. And
Wow.
let's not forget that people like Kevin Allen were was given a life sentence,
Mm.
now still serving 35 years for
Jesus.
two dime bags.
Oh.
Two dime bags. And it's heartbreaking to me. And I bring Kevin up because he's in Louisiana.
Mm.
I bring Kevin up because that's one of the most heinous
Mm.
cases that I've heard.
My God.
There's absolutely no reason that he should have been given a life sentence because it's his third nonviolent drug strike.
Wow.
So having people like Gary Chambers get involved um,
Yes.
with Kevin's case, and him highlighting, amplifying Kevin is what helped us get him down to 35 years. And it's
Mm.
crazy to say, get him down
Right.
to 35 years. And there was a gentleman after Mike Tyson did appear on the Fox show. There's a gentleman who appeared saying, cannabis is dangerous. And he
Mm.
said a lot of things. And one of the things that stood out to me is he said, it's a lie that anybody is serving hard time for nonviolent cannabis. And
Wow.
I about fell out of my chair when I heard that. Not only do I know about it personally, I
Mm.
speak to people doing that every day, serving that time every day. So
Wow.
I was blown away that this is the view that's being put out there.
Mm.
I'm just blown away. So really staying on top of what's happening in your state, reaching out to your governor, letting people know that yes, we care about what's going on with Iraq, but we also care about what's going on in our own backyard.
Mm. Right. And front
And
yards and in our
I will
houses.
just, and yes, and I will just put out, Lurie, while you're looking for an attorney,
Mm-hmm.
I recently just went to the graduation of one of our staunch constituents, Rashida Sinclair. Her
Wow.
father, Ricardo Ashmead, is serving a 22-year sentence. He served
Oh my
16 years
gosh.
already.
Mm.
So Rashida has fought so hard for her father.
Mm.
She not only made it through college and law school, she's
Wow.
about to take the bar in 30 days.
Oh, God bless her. Wait, what is her name? Rashida?
Rashida Ashmead or Rashida Sinclair. She
Okay.
embraces both of her parents' names, but she's an amazing sister, and I'm so proud of her.
Yes.
I am
So Urban
so
View,
proud of
everybody
her.
listening, I need all of you who are a praying person. You need to send some prayers towards Rashida. Let her know, Stephanie, that we are uplifting her, we are rooting for her and her father, and that's the sort of advocacy we want to see. That it has touched me personally. I'm going to do what I can to put myself in a position to make an impact on this topic. So we are all praying for her because from one lawyer to a baby lawyer, I know that bar exam is serious. That bar exam is a
Yes.
thing. Oh, but that's
John
beautiful.
Marshall Law School. I
Oh,
was so proud to
God
be there
bless.
in Atlanta to support and uphold her.
Well, we are going to also uphold her and send her as much prayer and support emotionally and spiritually as we can. So hopefully she feels the goodness coming from the amazing folks in the Urban View spaces. Now, Rashida, Last Prisoners Project, you guys are an advocacy organization. So that tells me that you also need resources because I run a nonprofit organization and we need resources. So for people
Of
who want to
course.
support this work, particularly because this is the type of criminal legal system issue that is not going to get the same level of attention as so many other things that are taking our eyes and brain power right now. What is the best way for them to support your organization to make sure that your advocacy doesn't get drowned out by all of the other very important things that we also have to navigate?
Absolutely. Going to our website, staying up on what we're working on. And if that resonates, pushing that donation button. And I will say, Lurie, being on your show last time, because every dollar counts.
Right?
We got $1,000 donation,
Wow.
and it was from one of your listeners.
Oh,
So I want
yes.
to thank whoever that was. And
Oh
they
my
actually
gosh.
put in the notes that it was because they had seen me on your show. And that
Wow.
$1,000, if you look at it the way I always look at every dollar,
Yep.
how many phone calls that is, how many commissary payments that is. That's almost 2 commissary payments that we give
Wow.
out. But that also is funding the work that we do, because we can't do this work on a volunteer basis. It just doesn't work.
That's right. That's right. And we're in a moment right now where our communities are remembering that if it's not FUBU, for us, by us, it probably ain't happening, not in any real meaningful way. And so we are going to have to we're going to be called upon in this new era to really support and sustain the organizations that are supporting and sustaining us in ways that we probably always should have. But because, things were navigating in a slightly different way, it wasn't as much of a focus. And it's definitely a focus that I have because I'm seeing what's happening with organizations like yours, even with mine, where funding is being pulled, where grants that you would have gotten 100%, no question before, now funders are pulling back and not necessarily willing to really support this sort of work, particularly when it's got a face that looks like yours or mine in the leadership of it. So I'm so great. Whoever you were in Urban View who did that, God bless you. I'm so grateful for you. And I'm appreciative that we are going to continue the call to supporting organizations like yours and uplifting these topics and these issues. So your website is lastprisonerproject.org.
Yeah.
All right, lastprisonersproject.org, y'all. We're going to support, we're going to do the work because, frankly, like I said, if it ain't for us, by us, it ain't happening. And we need this to happen because we cannot see a world where 200,000 of us are being arrested, incarcerated. And by us, I mean just people. I don't know what demographics they came from, although I suspect I would
You know
probably
it.
be right. Yeah, exactly.
Four times more likely that it's you or I.
That's
So,
right. That's right.
and shout out to all the rappers and the people who lift up the plant and highlight the plant and amplify the plant, but don't do anything about their brothers and sisters that are still incarcerated.
Ooh,
Step up, bring your dollars forward,
those
make
were
make this a
bars.
priority, or I'll stop highlighting.
Now, we need to put that on a track. I need somebody come up with some beats, put a track underneath that because that is an excellent point.